Right, so last night, without a parliamentary vote, our unelected Prime Minister Rishi Sunak decided he can find some money for war when there's never any for public services, of course. There's always money for war, isn't there? Begin a bombing campaign against the Houthis in Yemen, jumping on Genocide Joe's coattails to bomb the Houthis. No mandate to run a lemonade stand in this country, let alone take us into war in the Middle East. But of course the reasons for doing so are even worse. The Houthis have imposed a blockade in the Red Sea to Israeli shipping. They were driving away their ships using rockets and drones and speedboats, and up until the US turned up with a warship, nobody had died. Then the US destroyed 3 Houthi boats, killing 10 of them. Yemen is doing this in solidarity with Gaza, of course, when Israel is inflicting a genocide on the people there. This is in court right now, today. This bombing in Yemen happened between the 2 hearings at the Hague. We are literally getting involved in conflict to allow a genocidal nation to carry on committing genocide. I'm utterly revolted at what Sunak has done, but it gets more despairing even than that, because as usual, the red Tory Keir Starmer has come out in support of this as well. Right, so Joe Biden has gone to war with Yemen, and Rishi Sunak has basically gone, wait for me, as he quickly raised the kids' dressing up box for a military uniform that might fit him. They've issued a pathetic statement, the government, on this, saying, recognising the broad consensus as expressed by 44 countries around the world on December 19, 2023, as well as the statement by the UN Security Council on the 1st of December 2023, condemning Houthi attacks against merchant and commercial vessels transiting in the Red Sea, our governments issued a joint statement on the 3rd of January 2024, which called for the immediate end of illegal attacks and warned that malign actors would be held accountable should they continue to threaten lives, the global economy, and the free flow of commerce in the region's critical waterways. Despite this strong warning, attacks in the Red Sea have continued, including the launch of numerous missiles and one-way attack aerial vehicles against ships in the Red Sea on January the 9th, 2024, including US and UK vessels. On January the 10th, 2024, the UN Security Council passed UN Security Council Resolution 2722, which also condemned these attacks and demanded that they cease. In response to continued illegal, dangerous and destabilising Houthi attacks against vessels, including commercial shipping transiting in the Red Sea, the armed forces of the United States and United Kingdom, with support from the Netherlands, Canada, Bahrain and Australia, conducted joint strikes in accordance with the inherent right of individual and collective self-defence, consistent with the UN Charter, against a number of targets in Houthi-controlled areas of Yemen. These precision strikes were intended to disrupt and degrade the capabilities the Houthis use to threaten global trade and the lives of international mariners in one of the world's most critical waterways. The Houthis' more than 24 attacks on commercial vessels since mid-November constitute an international challenge. Today's actions demonstrated a shared commitment to freedom of navigation, international commerce, and defending the lives of mariners from illegal and unjustifiable attacks. Our aim remains to de-escalate tensions and restore stability in the Red Sea, but let our message be clear. We will not hesitate to defend lives and ensure the free flow of commerce in one of the world's most critical waterways in the face of continued threats. So, in summation, the UK is hiding behind the UN Charter as an excuse to mount military strikes on Yemen, whilst having been ignoring the UN Charter for the last 3 months as far as Israel is concerned in order for them to commit genocide. You can argue that Yemen are upholding the UN Charter by sanctioning Israel more than the UN itself via the Security Council and Western leaders are. They are UN member state themselves, but that didn't stop. As the government statement I just read out alluded to, the Security Council bringing a motion to instruct Yemen to halt their attacks on commercial and merchant shipping in the Red Sea just Wednesday gone. Now, who could have brought such a resolution to the Security Council, I wonder? Well, wonder no more, because of course it was the US. When it comes to the Israel anyway, the veto-happy United States are going to be there to stand up and be counted. The resolution passed and Yemen summarily ignored it. They are holding Israel to account when the West refuses to, so now the West, the UK, the US, Netherlands, Germany, as well as New Zealand, Australia, Canada, Bahrain, South Korea are bombing Yemen. Surgical strikes, specific targets as they claim, but if Israel wasn't on the receiving end of their actions, you can bet they wouldn't be bothering. This is about Israel first and foremost. Protect them at all costs, despite the genocide they are perpetrating. It's day 2 of the genocide case brought by South Africa against Israel today in The Hague. And before Israel could even lay down their first bit of nonsense, this happened in Yemen. If Israel get ruled against, it could be state actors attacking Yemen now that are in the dock next. being seen to be aiding and abetting. The US are already being lined up by South African lawyers for a potential next stage litigation, apparently. It seems there's a queue of other nations eager to join them, not least of which the UK. Rishi Sunak has issued a statement himself on this action. He said, "The Royal Air Force has carried out targeted strikes against military facilities used by Houthi rebels in Yemen. In recent months, the Houthi militia have carried out a series of dangerous and destabilising attacks against commercial shipping in the Red Sea, threatening UK and other international ships, causing major disruption to a vital trade route and driving up commodity prices. Their reckless actions are risking lives at sea and exacerbating the humanitarian crisis in Yemen. Despite the repeated warnings from the international community, the Houthis have continued to carry out attacks in the Red Sea, including against the UK and US warships just this week. This cannot stand! The United Kingdom will always stand up for freedom of navigation and the free flow of trade. We have therefore taken limited, necessary and proportionate action in self-defence, alongside the United States, along with non-operational support from the Netherlands, Canada and Bahrain, against targets tied to these attacks to degrade Houthi military capabilities and protect global shipping. The Royal Navy continues to patrol the Red Sea as part of the multinational Operation Prosperity Guardians to deter further Houthi aggression, and we urge them to cease their attacks and de-escalate. Never mind Yemen de-escalate, you de-escalate. Where did the money for all of this action come from, by the way? We're broke, you keep telling us. We can't afford anything anymore. More cuts to come. The only shipping affected is Israeli shipping. The only trade affected is Israeli trade. The only commodity prices rising are Israeli ones because the Houthis haven't touched anyone else. Not before you and Biden entered with a couple of warships, jumping up and down in a rage. Remove the word global and replace it with Israel. It all becomes a more honest statement. But he's not the only Tory weighing in either. Possibly even less welcome is a response from the also unelected Foreign Secretary, David Cameron, who said, "The UK and the US have carried out targeted strikes on Houthi military targets in Yemen. The safety of UK vessels and the freedom of navigation across the Red Sea is paramount, and that is why we are taking action. As the United Security Council has made clear, the Houthis must hold attacks in the Red Sea." After Libya, a permanent period of silence from you on such matters as this would be very welcome, Dave. The Security Council can act to stop the Houthis, but it can't act to stop the Israeli genocide. When it really isn't the Security Council driving either of those decisions, it is the US choosing when to force through an action and when to veto it. Its hypocrisy is off the charts right now. The UN is dancing to the United States tune, and you're basically bloody cheerleaders for that. But the blue Tories sadly aren't alone in this, because the red Tories of Keir Starmer are as well. Starmer apparently determined to get that heir to Blair title down pat, right down to the blood dripping off his hands. Starmer was on BBC Breakfast and was asked about this, saying, "I did get a briefing last night from the Cabinet Office. Obviously I can't tell you what the content of that briefing was, but it is, I think, important that we had that briefing. When Rishi Sunak became Prime Minister, I had a phone call with him on the first day, and amongst other things, we agreed that we would robustly challenge each other on the politics of the day. But when it came to national security, issues of defence of the country, we would seek to cooperate and work together." Well, when pushed by Charlie State as to whether he had given his support for this particular action in Yemen, though, Starmer said yes. Well, would you like to point out how this is a matter of self-defence? Yemen haven't attacked us. We put a warship off their coast in the Red Sea. We're the ones enabling a genocide in Gaza, which Yemen are fighting against. Let's not pretend this is any more about self-defence in your eyes than it is in Sunak's. It is, again, all about Israel. Protect Israel. Stand by Israel. Well, not in my name, you're not. Hello, all you vote Labour to get the Tories out types. Does that include supporting genocide in Gaza or no? I just want to check. Well, here's an example. Nobody quite triggers the Starmeroids like Jeremy Corbyn does, who, despite being at The Hague right now as part of South Africa's delegation, still managed to tweet out a response to the strike on Yemen saying, "Military action in Yemen by the UK and US government is a reckless act of escalation that will only cause more death and suffering. It is utterly disgraceful that Parliament has not even been consulted. When will we learn from our mistakes and realise that war is not the answer?" Cue the always easily triggered fake lefty and Starmer's stand parliamentary seat chaser Paul Mason, who came out to Jeremy with a reply saying, "Rubbish, Jeremy. The strikes were a last resort after terrorists repeatedly attacked working class seafarers. Do the right thing and support those risking their lives to keep civilian ships safe from terrorism." Well, by all means, get on the front line, Paul. We have no business out there, and this desperation to protect Israel from any measure of censure, despite the atrocities they are committing, is shameless and embarrassing, and you aren't doing it in my name. For all the talk of this unblocking commercial shipping, all this is doing is making the Red Sea completely impassable to everyone. No ships will now get through. The Houthis will be blamed for any economic hit we now get from it, despite very much instigating this ourselves for the sake of Israel, on Joe Biden's coattails, as I said before, chasing the US again, begging the question, which country are these politicians of ours really serving most, ours or theirs? Any civilian deaths that ensue following this act of idiocy by both main parties here or there, and both Sunak and Starmer will want dragging to the Hague and the ICC. We're prioritising fighting people interrupting shipping rather than dealing with a nation committing genocide. In fact, we're attacking one to protect the other. There are enough bombs being dropped on innocent civilians in Gaza. If you think that won't now happen in Yemen, then you're deluding yourselves, even when the Houthis have so far killed nobody, and Israel has killed tens of thousands. Spreading the tensions further, is that those Houthis? Well, they're Iran backed, did you know? I don't know if the media mentions that nearly enough. Well, this means Iran will inevitably get involved as well now, a much more powerful country. So little wonder people are talking of World War III happening here, and that all because nobody will tell Israel to stop blowing up innocent people. But they're happy to maybe blow up everyone else and cause catastrophe on a wider scale. The other angle to Sunak doing this, and you can just smell the thinking here as well, that he thinks there might be a Falklands moment in this to help his poll ratings. And Starmer clearly thinks likewise because he's copied him as always. The pair of them are pathetic. But if you're wondering what to watch next following this, then there's always a small matter of where the RAF are flying from to Yemen right now, as this video here will explain, because extra military personnel were sent to the Eastern Mediterranean, half of them to Cyprus, just the other day. The other half of them, well, we don't know exactly where they got sent. Well, I did wonder what they might be there for, and, well, isn't it convenient they happen to be just in the right place at just in the right time? Coincidence, perhaps? Surely not. I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.